Greetings. Since my videos are stolen and uploaded to two different other channels, even though I would report them, I know who this is, and I know that he would simply upload them elsewhere, so no point reporting them because I would just have to always report other bogus accounts. So I'm going to simply read parts of the book what makes narcissistic by Kathy Krajco. Kathy Krajco was of the first survivors who talked about narcissistic abuse under her real name. She died unexpectedly in her home in 2008. She was 56 years old. I suspect the narcissistic hive mind was behind her death. In her book, What Makes Narcissists Tick, Kathy Krajco says, page 94, Tramples privacy boundaries as a control freak. By the way, if I'm not speaking quick enough to your taste, just go to settings and select 1.25. Yet another red flag is a universal disrespect for other people's privacy boundaries. This is a result of the narcissist viewing people as mere objects there for her sake or his sake to serve his needs and desires. I gave an example in the previous section in the boyfriend who disrespects your right to decide how you wear your hair. It's your body, not his. You're the one who lives with the consequences of the decision, not him. You aren't his car. Something he owns and therefore can paint a different color if he wishes. You own you. Here's another more literal example. Your property line affects him like waving a red flag affects a bull. He must violate it and make what's your territory his territory. So he parks at your lawn, ties his big mean dog out at the edge of his property, so it's a little too loud. To use yours and menace you with Rover. He reacts to your claim of ownership as though you're stealing from him. Nothing short of a big fence will stop him from making your property his. And then he'll probably ram it with his truck if he thinks you'll be intimidated by that. In other words, he's incapable of distinguishing between mind and time. End of the quote. Which is why a narcissist sticks his nose into everything. For he considers your business is business. He feels it incumbent on him to bestow judgment every single thing people think, say, do, wear, or even feel. His disapproval or the threat of it is a stick this control freak with a god complex herds people with. He is possessing you. Quote from Sharon C. Eckleberry. Individuals with NPD are likely to attempt to get their needs met in relationships without acknowledging the independent existence of those from which they expect to feed. This is from Dual Diagnosis and the Narcissistic Personality Disorder. So he presumptuously makes other people's choices for them, often to ridiculous extremes, such as telling people how to wear their hair, what clothes to wear, where to buy things, and what brands to buy, what chair to sit in, what hand to start on, which route to take, and so on. You can tell he's doing it just to do it, because he makes people change their choice to comply with his wishes. In fact, if the same person is doing what he said to do the last time, the narcissist tells her to do it differently this time. In short, a narcissist views others as objects on a chessboard or tool robots, the executioners of his will. One I know of, a private school principal, demonstrates the desperate compulsion narcissists have to control people. He is said to have nearly driven almost 1,000 people to justifiable homicide by blasting over an hour's worth of non-stop orders over a blaring squawk box about what to do in an annual Christmas celebration that everybody had carried off, without instructions for decades. Nobody could walk into a room and sit down without this clown telling them to sit somewhere else. Now I want to continue with what keeps a reign of terror going. Page 387. Now back to the main event, the big reign of terror. We all can see that if anyone's rights are violated, nobody's rights are secure. If you abandon instead of love your neighbor when he comes under attack, he won't be there to love you if you come under attack. If people had any sense, instead of ganging up on whomever a bully sicks them on, they'd gang up on the bully. They'd strike till that employee is rehired and the boss fired. They'd do what many schools now teach little children to do: go and stand beside whomever the bully is picking on and tell the bully to stop it. But that just doesn't happen unless an unexpected wannabe bully butches in. All he has to do is first slip them in his pocket by getting them to do one thing they shouldn't have, one thing that contributes to someone's victimization. It's as easy as dropping a heavy hint that you're a hatch man, and then sitting down to chat privately with each employee about the others. Just suck a little slander that affects the status of employment out of them. Then the first hell rolls. Make the spectacle a doozy. When they see your victim fired and blackballed and hear that his marriage was busted by all the rumors flying around about him and every other shockingly vicious and cruel thing you went a mile out of your way to do to him in the process, they will all crawl down into the very bottom of your pocket and stay there forever, no matter what. Their shame and guilt is the demon at the door. Yes, now they know that they walked into a trap. that you succored them to implicate them in what you did. Now they have to cover up your crime for you. It's a catch-22. They are scared to death of you, but they can't bear witness against you without incriminating themselves. So they have to protect the predator who is preying on them. Could anything be more bizarre and unnatural? Bizarre and unnatural. And have they learned their lesson? No. In fact, next time, they are eager to do it again and worse, just to prove it wasn't wrong and stupid the first time they did it. And the guiltier they feel about it, the more they do it. That's why persecution goes hand in hand with scapegoating, to scapegoat the victim with the growing guilt for the persecution itself. And scapegoating is done by projection. But projection doesn't ditch guilt, it ditches blame. Guilt is merely repressed, buried like a corpus delicti. Having gotten away with murder, they're haunted by nightmares of that corpus delicti arising from its shallow grave. As it thrusts up one hand then the other out of the ground, the murderer keeps frantically shoveling on more dirt to keep it buried. Similarly, when people let the bully sick them on some target person or group, the more they persecute, the more their guilt and shame for doing so threatens to surface to consciousness. To keep it buried, they keep finding more fault in the target to blame the victim with, shoveling on more dirt. I'm not sure if I said it, I'm on page 388. If that won't work because the target has been eliminated, the bully just serves them up another target to project their guilt and shame often too. Either way, they incur more guilt and shame. They incur more guilt and shame, necessitating more projection. See what a vicious cycle gets going and how it feeds on itself. This is why any purge or persecution gets furiouser and furiouser. This is why the people involved seem to get drunk on blood and act as though the more they drink, the thirstier they get. It's a runaway freight train ride to mass self-destruction. They know it, but they can't stop. With every swing of the axe, it becomes more glaringly obvious that sooner or later their own head will roll. But the more forcefully this truth imposes on their mind, the more forcefully they deny it. They repress knowledge of it to the level of the subconscious, thus altering their state of consciousness, lowering it, which diminishes their intellect and awareness. The innocent between commas bystanders. What about all the innocent bystanders? What can you expect from them? In a word, nothing. The more deplorable thing about narcissistic abuse is the bystander's reaction to it. It can hand you naivety and turn you into a cynic overnight. The universal complaint of those targeted by narcissists is that they are universally abandoned. But let this fact comfort you. It's not because of something wrong with you. it's because of something wrong with them. Something that, perhaps, for lack of a better name, has been dubbed normal personality disorder with a wink. First, let's understand this phenomenon. I warn you that doing so is painful, but from this understanding, you can gain some guidance on where to look for help and where to place your trust in outsiders, not insiders. Thou shalt not be a victim. Thou shalt not be a perpetrator. Above all, thou shalt not be a bystander. Israeli historian Yehuda Bauer has quoted on the wall of United States Holocaust Memorial, Washington, D.C. People are like sheep. When a wolf approaches, you think they are blissfully unaware of his presence, but they are studying his every move. By showing no alarm, each sheep is just careful to draw no attention to itself. The moment the wolf sets the evil eye on one of their number, the rest explode in all directions away from that lamb. In other words, they leave the victim to the wolf. Again, if I'm reading too slowly, just go to settings and select the speed of 1.25 and you'll be alright. Which is to say that they abandon the lamb to the wolf. They betray and over the lamb to the wolf. They sacrifice the lamb to the wolf. Don't tell me 50 sheep couldn't stand off a wolf, because they could. They just don't. Later, they come back to graze upon that very spot as if lamb never existed. History is replete with examples of human race doing the same thing. The most ironic, famous example is what happened to Jesus of Nazareth. The same people who thronged to welcome him, crying, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. One way abominated him, crying, crucify him, the next. All because the wind shifted so they couldn't get close enough to him one day, and they could not distance themselves from him enough the next. Quote, it's very tempting to take the side of the perpetrator. All the perpetrator asks is that the bystander do nothing. He appeals to the universal desire to see, hear, and speak no evil. The victim, on the contrary, asks the bystander to share the burden of pain. The victim demands action, engagement, and remembering. This is by Judith Herman, Harvard psychiatrist, as quoted by Kenneth Pope in Torture, a chapter in the Encyclopedia of Woman and Gender. The same thing happens in every purge, pogrom, persecution, and witch hunt. People behave like unsupervised children do when a schoolyard bully sets the evil eye on one of them. In fact, bullies quickly learn to exploit this behavior. The Lord of the Flies is a brilliant, sad, and enlightening novel, also made into a movie, that explores this phenomenon. Before you know it, the bully is constantly picking on somebody. Why? To periodically make an example of what happens to anyone he sets the evil eye on. In other words, your little schoolyard bully is now a terrorist. He is victimizing one kid to control the others. and he does so just frequently enough to maintain the atmosphere of terror he thrives on. I have a problem with this abbreviation. He deliberately targets the last ones to deserve his hatred, because that shows the others that they don't need to give him any reason to attack. He is so wild that he is likely to just go off at anyone. This makes the other children fall all over themselves to ingratiate themselves to him. They are so anxious to kiss up that they take advantage of opportunities to be seen by him abusing his victim themselves. So he can sick them like a pack of hounds to anyone he wants. How do the other children justify taking no action against the terrifying bully and persecuting the victim instead? The same way the terrifying bully does, by blaming the victim. How do they deal with their guilt? The same way the terrifying bully does, by projection onto the victim, of course. So the victim gets to be not only the victim of their sins, but also the one punished for them to boot. To rationalize, between commas, equal irrationalize, in parentheses, what they're doing, the bystanders twist their thinking to pervert everything, so that anything the victim does is somehow wrong, and everything the terrifying bully does is somehow excusable. They do this by looking on what the wild one does, like those three famous happies: see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. This is the worst form of lying, and to do it, one must pervert the very mind to think something utterly absurd. Frankly, I don't understand how people can have so little self-respect that they can bear to make such fool of themselves. But they do. Quote, "Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities." End of the quote by Voltaire. And the kicker is the flagrant double standard. If the victim lifts a finger to defend himself, those innocent between commas bystanders suddenly come to and scream bloody murder. In this comedy central of what? Notice what these innocent between commas bystanders are doing. They're awarding the bully to the status of a child, equal no one not responsible of his own behavior, one who may lay the blame for everything he does on someone else. In other words, the terrifying bully can do no wrong. Thus they absolve him of responsibility for whatever he does, no matter what. It is always the victim's fault for making him mad. Every bully and rapist and wife-beater says the same thing. Boys will be boys. What he did to her is her fault. She must dress so as to control his sexual appetite for him by looking like a sack of potatoes between parentheses. Okay. The abbreviations, I have a problem with this, so I will go for the long run. We must not set these wild people off by making them mad. Every time they throw a terror tantrum, it's our fault. No matter what the context, it's always the same story. Blame the victim. That way, the wild one gets to do whatever he wants and have somebody else be to blame for it. Now that's infallibility. So your innocent between comma bystanders aren't innocent at all. Sad fact, but true. They're collaborators. Are they all crazy? No, they are just actors. They are playing pretend. They are pretending that they don't know any better. They are pretending that black is white and that up is down. They are pretending that they really are the nice people they're portraying and that the story is true. So long as the house lights are down and the outside world, the audience, between parentheses, is out of sight and out of mind, they are in their own upside down little world, a wonderland where anti-logic it is logic, where fool is fair and vice versa, where their absurd charade is their reality. They are just being politically correct in their pretend world, which is a virtual reality that their virtual conspiracy enacts. If the outside world intrudes on their playdown, they'll check back into their senses instantly. Why? Because they know outsiders have nothing to gain by pretending they're too stupid to know better. So the actors know outsiders won't buy it. That's why the moment outsiders shows up, the actors immediately drop character and behave as though they've been caught naked. I think I will stop here for now. It's almost 28 minutes. I thank you for listening.